seclusion. For those who had long suspected that Elvis faked his death, Lisa Marie's Elvis Presley is alive? Could it be possible that the king of rock and roll didn't actually die in 1977? You won't believe these 20 shocking facts that suggest otherwise. For decades, fans have been captivated by the official story that on August 16, 1977, the world lost one of its most beloved entertainers. The news of Elvis's death spread like wildfire, leaving fans in mourning and shaking the music industry to its core. Flights to Memphis were booked solid, and Graceland was flooded with tributes. But even from the very beginning, some people questioned the details of his passing. Could it be that the king didn't leave us that fateful day? The evidence is startling, and many believe that there's far more to the story than we've been told. From mysterious sightings to cryptic messages, today we'll dive deep into the facts that might just change everything you thought you knew about Elvis Presley. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss the twists and turns of this mind-blowing journey. Number 7. The final night. Elvis Presley's last night alive was supposed to be just another routine evening for the king of rock and roll. After visiting the dentist, he returned to Graceland in the early hours of August 16, 1977. According to those closest to him, Elvis spent the night discussing plans for his upcoming tour with his new girlfriend, Ginger Alden, and talking about a book his bodyguards were writing. Elvis was preparing for the next chapter of his life, even discussing possible engagement plans with Ginger. As the night wore on, however, things took a dark turn. Battling insomnia, Elvis reportedly took a dose of sedatives to help him sleep, but when those didn't seem to work, he took another dose just hours later. Tragically, that second dose would prove fatal, leading to the events that shocked the world when Ginger found him unresponsive on the bathroom floor the next morning. The official story that followed claimed that Elvis Presley had died from cardiac arrest, likely exacerbated by his reliance on prescription drugs. Paramedics arrived quickly, but nothing could be done. He was rushed to Baptist Memorial Hospital, where doctors could only confirm what millions of fans feared: the king was gone. The autopsy cited cardiac arrhythmia as the cause of death, but there were plenty of loose ends. His toxicology report revealed a cocktail of pharmaceuticals in his system, sparking speculation that an overdose might have been the true cause. Yet, despite the many questions, the public was told to accept the official narrative. Elvis Presley had died that morning, and the world would have to learn to live without him. But what if Elvis never died that night? What if the man who revolutionized rock and roll and captured the hearts of millions wasn't lying on that bathroom floor after all? Could it be that Elvis carefully orchestrated his own disappearance, using that fateful night as the perfect cover for an elaborate escape from the pressures of fame? As we peel back the layers of this mystery, the evidence suggests there's more to the story. Strange sightings, mysterious autopsy results, and odd details from those closest to him all raise one big question. Is it possible that the king of rock and roll staged his own death and continued to live in secret? The truth may be far stranger than fiction. Number 6. The mystery at Graceland. In the hours following the announcement of Elvis Presley's death, rumors of his survival began to swirl almost immediately. Among the most compelling stories were the eyewitness accounts from fans who claimed to have seen Elvis, alive and well, at the Memphis airport just hours after he was declared dead. These witnesses insisted that Elvis, attempting to remain incognito, was spotted buying 2 tickets to Buenos Aires, Argentina, under the name John Burroughs, a known pseudonym he had used in the past when traveling privately. One fan even claimed to have spoken with Elvis, who allegedly signed an autograph on his airline ticket. This fan, John Sparks, would later submit the autograph for analysis, and, astonishingly, 5 independent handwriting experts confirmed it was Elvis's signature. Could it be that the king of rock and roll had slipped away unnoticed, embarking on a new life far from the spotlight? The airport sighting wasn't the only strange occurrence that fueled the belief that Elvis was still alive. Just months after his supposed death, a photo emerged that sent shockwaves through the fan community. Taken by a visitor to Graceland on New Year's Eve, 1977, the image shows a man sitting casually by the pool at Elvis's beloved estate. The resemblance to the king is uncanny. Everything from the man's posture to his profile sparked immediate speculation that this could, in fact, be Elvis himself. The photographer, Mike Joseph, had no idea what he had captured until the film was developed. When the photo hit the tabloids, it ignited a firestorm of discussion. How could a man resembling Elvis be sitting at Graceland months after his death? Was it possible that Elvis had quietly returned to his home, living in the shadows of his own life? For many die-hard fans, this photograph by the pool became undeniable proof that Elvis faked his death. The sight of him, relaxed and at ease in the place he loved most, was enough to fuel the conspiracy theories that had already been brewing. Some claimed that Elvis, overwhelmed by the pressures of fame, had staged his death to live out his life in peace, while others suggested that he might have been in hiding for more sinister reasons. Regardless of the explanation, one thing was clear. The world wasn't ready to let go of Elvis Presley, and with each new sighting, each new photo, the mystery only deepened. Could it be that the king was never truly gone, just hiding in plain sight? Number 5. Suspicious details. Around the funeral. Elvis Presley's funeral, held just days after his supposed death, was filled with strange and unsettling details that raised more questions than answers. One of the most bizarre occurrences was the condition of the coffin itself. According to multiple witnesses, the coffin was unusually cold to the touch, so cold, in fact, that it seemed unnatural. It reportedly took 12 pallbearers to carry the heavy bronze casket, a detail that struck many as odd, considering Elvis's weight at the time of his death, which didn't justify such an extraordinary burden. Some attendees even claimed that standing near the coffin felt like being next to an industrial cooling unit, leading to rampant speculation. Could there have been a refrigeration system inside, designed to preserve something other than a human body? Some theorists went even further, suggesting that the figure inside the coffin wasn't Elvis at all, but a lifelike wax figure created to maintain the illusion of his death. Was the real Elvis hidden away, far from prying eyes, while the world mourned over a cleverly staged spectacle? These strange occurrences at the funeral only added fuel to the fire when combined with the oddities surrounding Elvis's autopsy. For reasons that remain unclear, the results of the autopsy were sealed by the state of Tennessee and are not scheduled to be made public until 2027, 50 years after his death. This unusual decision has left fans and conspiracy theorists alike scratching their heads. Why would such crucial information be kept secret for so long? In the absence of definitive answers, many have speculated that the autopsy report might contain shocking details that could expose a grand cover-up. Some believe that the results could reveal discrepancies about the condition of the body, such as signs of aging or health conditions inconsistent with the man known as Elvis Presley. Others suggest that the report might confirm the presence of a wax figure or another form of subterfuge used to fake his death. The secrecy surrounding the autopsy has kept the mystery alive for decades. The fact that we won't know the full details until 2027 has only heightened suspicions that there is more to the story than we've been told. Could the king of rock and roll have orchestrated an elaborate disappearance, with those closest to him helping to maintain the illusion? Or is the sealed report merely a bureaucratic oddity, with no hidden agenda behind it? Whatever the case, the longer the details remain sealed, the more the mystery surrounding Elvis's death will grow, leaving fans and theorists alike wondering, was this all part of a carefully planned escape from fame, or is the truth even stranger than fiction? Number 4. Confessions from loved ones. In 2006, Priscilla Presley sat down for what appeared to be a routine interview with Oprah Winfrey, discussing her life, career, and the enduring legacy of her late ex-husband, Elvis Presley. But during the conversation, she made a statement that sent shockwaves through the Elvis fan base and conspiracy circles alike. While talking about Elvis, Priscilla casually remarked, "That's what he told me the other day." The statement seemed like a slip of the tongue, an accidental admission that implied Elvis had recently spoken to her, decades after his reported death. Oprah, ever the seasoned interviewer, moved on without pressing the issue, but the damage was done. Fans and theorists latched onto Priscilla's words, interpreting them as confirmation that Elvis was still alive and in contact with those closest to him. Was it just an innocent mistake, or did Priscilla Presley inadvertently reveal one of the best-kept secrets in rock and roll history? Adding fuel to the fire was a statement made by Elvis's only daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, during a 2012 interview with a Swedish talk show. When discussing her father's influence on her life, Lisa Marie made a shocking claim. She stated that her father had personally shown her how to manage the Presley family corporation. This left audiences baffled, as Elvis had supposedly died in 1977, years before Lisa Marie would have been old enough to take on such responsibilities. How could Elvis have taught her to manage the business unless he was still alive and quietly guiding his family from behind the scenes? The remark reignited speculation, with some believing that Elvis had been secretly involved in the management of his estate, passing on vital knowledge to his daughter as he lived in seclusion. For those who had long suspected that Elvis faked his death, Lisa Marie's comment was a tantalizing piece of evidence. Both Priscilla and Lisa Marie's remarks have since become cornerstone pieces of the theory that Elvis did not die in 1977. To this day, fans debate whether these slip-ups were accidental revelations or simply misunderstood statements taken out of context. But when combined with the numerous other strange occurrences and inconsistencies surrounding Elvis's death, they seem to suggest that the king may still be out there, living quietly under a new identity, while his family continues to safeguard his legacy. Did Priscilla and Lisa Marie Presley let the truth slip? Or are we all just reading too deeply into their words? The mystery lingers, leaving fans to wonder, could Elvis still be alive, communicating with his family and orchestrating his own legend from behind the curtain? Number 4. Confessions from loved ones. In 2006, Priscilla Presley sat down for what appeared to be a routine interview with Oprah Winfrey, discussing her life, career, and the enduring legacy of her late ex-husband, Elvis Presley. But during the conversation, she made a statement that sent shockwaves through the Elvis fan base and conspiracy circles alike. While talking about Elvis, Priscilla casually remarked, "That's what he told me the other day." The statement seemed like a slip of the tongue, an accidental admission that implied Elvis had recently spoken to her, decades after his reported death. Oprah, ever the seasoned interviewer, moved on without pressing the issue, but the damage was done. Fans and theorists latched onto Priscilla's words, interpreting them as confirmation that Elvis was still alive and in contact with those closest to him. Was it just an innocent mistake? Or did Priscilla Presley inadvertently reveal one of the best-kept secrets in rock and roll history? Adding fuel to the fire was a statement made by Elvis's only daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, during a 2012 interview with a Swedish talk show. When discussing her father's influence on her life, Lisa Marie made a shocking claim. She stated that her father had personally shown her how to manage the Presley family corporation. This left audiences baffled, as Elvis had supposedly died in 1977, years before Lisa Marie would have been old enough to take on such responsibilities. How could Elvis have taught her to manage the business unless he was still alive and quietly guiding his family from behind the scenes? The remark reignited speculation, with some believing that Elvis had been secretly involved in the management of his estate, passing on vital knowledge to his daughter as he lived in seclusion. For those who had long suspected that Elvis faked his death, Lisa Marie's comment was a tantalizing piece of evidence. Both Priscilla and Lisa Marie's remarks have since become cornerstone pieces of the theory that Elvis did not die in 1977. To this day, fans debate whether these slip-ups were accidental revelations or simply misunderstood statements taken out of context. But when combined with the numerous other strange occurrences and inconsistencies surrounding Elvis's death, they seem to suggest that the king may still be out there, living quietly under a new identity, while his family continues to safeguard his legacy. Did Priscilla and Lisa Marie Presley let the truth slip? Or are we all just reading too deeply into their words? The mystery lingers, leaving fans to wonder, could Elvis still be alive, communicating with his family, and orchestrating his own legend from behind the curtain? Number 2. The grand conspiracy, one of the most compelling and sensational theories surrounding Elvis Presley's alleged faked death, is the idea that he was running from the mafia. According to some conspiracy theorists, Elvis had been recruited by the FBI to work as an undercover agent to help infiltrate a notorious criminal organization known as the Brotherhood. This theory gained traction when a writer, Gail Brewer Giorgio, claimed to have uncovered thousands of FBI documents that supported this narrative. According to these files, Elvis had grown close to powerful mafia figures over the years, and his life was at risk once his cover was blown. Facing the possibility of being targeted by the mob, the king supposedly had no other option but to fake his death to ensure his safety. By entering the witness protection program, Elvis could have started a new life, hidden from the mafia's reach. Could the story of Elvis's tragic death actually have been a carefully orchestrated FBI operation to protect one of their own? Theories like this are fueled by the odd and suspicious financial moves made by major companies just before and after Elvis's reported death. RCA, the record label that had worked with Elvis throughout his career, made a surprising decision to release a massive quantity of Elvis albums in the weeks leading up to his death. This was particularly strange because Elvis's career was in decline at the time, and such a move would typically be seen as a financial risk. However, this decision turned out to be incredibly profitable, as fans rushed to buy every record available in the aftermath of his passing. It was almost as if RCA knew something that the public didn't, positioning themselves to profit from the wave of nostalgia that would follow Elvis's death. This raises the question, did RCA have inside knowledge of Elvis's plans to disappear, or was it merely a lucky coincidence? NBC, which had been the sponsor of Elvis's upcoming concert tour, also made unusual financial decisions that have left many scratching their heads. Just before Elvis's death, NBC made a full 100% prepayment for his next tour, a move almost unheard of in the entertainment industry. This was a significant financial commitment, especially considering Elvis's declining health and erratic behavior in his final years. Why would NBC gamble so heavily on a tour that might never happen? Could it be that they, too, were aware of Elvis's plan to vanish from the public eye and saw an opportunity to capitalize on the public's reaction to his disappearance? These strange financial maneuvers, combined with the possibility of Elvis's involvement with the FBI and the mafia, suggest that there is far more to the story than the public was ever told. Were these corporations simply preparing for an inevitable tragedy, or were they part of a larger cover-up that allowed the king to slip away unnoticed? Number 1. The living Elvis today. One of the most iconic and mysterious pieces of evidence in the ongoing speculation about Elvis Presley's possible survival is the famous photograph taken during a Graceland vigil shortly after his death. In the image, amidst a crowd of mourners paying tribute to the king, there appears to be a bearded man wearing sunglasses, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Elvis himself. The figure stands off to the side, blending into the crowd, but to many, the likeness is unmistakable. His height, build, and even the shape of his face seem eerily similar to that of the king. The man's attempt to remain inconspicuous only fueled the intrigue, with fans wondering whether Elvis had disguised himself just enough to attend his own vigil without drawing attention. Was this a heartfelt goodbye to his fans, a private moment of closure, or just a coincidental look-alike? To the conspiracy theorists, this image is a tantalizing clue that Elvis never left us at all, but instead chose to live a quiet life in the shadows. The mystery of the man in the crowd isn't the only sighting that has kept the theory of Elvis's survival alive. Over the years, numerous reports of Elvis sightings have surfaced, but one of the most intriguing occurred years later at another Graceland event. This time, a video emerged showing an elderly man walking among the crowd at the estate, wearing a baseball cap and sporting a white beard. What made this sighting particularly fascinating was the moment when the man, aware of the camera on him, raised two fingers in a V gesture, a signal that many fans interpreted as a secret message to his loyal followers. The gesture, they believed, was Elvis's way of confirming that he was still alive, watching over his legacy from afar. The man in the video quickly became a focal point of intense speculation, with fans poring over every frame to analyze his walk, his mannerisms, and his facial features. To some, there was no doubt. This was Elvis, making one last subtle appearance to reassure his fans that he was still with them. As the years have passed, these sightings have only added to the mystique surrounding Elvis's supposed survival. While many dismiss these accounts as wishful thinking or clever impersonations, others believe they are undeniable proof that the king faked his death and has been quietly living in seclusion ever since. The theories range from Elvis living under an assumed identity in a small town, to him occasionally returning to Graceland in disguise, watching over his estate and the fans who continue to honor him. With every new sighting and piece of evidence, the legend of Elvis Presley's survival grows. Whether these sightings are real or simply the result of people not wanting to say goodbye to their idol, the fascination with Elvis's fate shows no signs of fading. Could it be that Elvis is still out there, hiding in plain sight, sending cryptic signals to those who believe? The truth remains one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Could Elvis Presley still be alive, living in hiding, or did he truly pass away on that fateful day in 1977? The evidence we've explored, from eyewitness accounts to mysterious recordings and strange financial decisions, raises more questions than answers. With every new theory, photo, and cryptic message, the line between fact and fiction becomes increasingly blurred. The possibility that Elvis may have staged his death to escape the pressures of fame or even to evade the mafia is as fascinating as it is controversial. And yet, some of the details seem almost too perfect to be a coincidence. Could the king of rock and roll have pulled off one of the greatest disappearances in history? Or are we simply holding on to a dream that our beloved icon might still be out there? The facts are intriguing, but in the end, the decision is yours. As we close this chapter in the never-ending mystery of Elvis Presley's life and death, we want to hear from you. What do you believe? Do these 20 shocking facts convince you that Elvis may still be alive? Or do you think the official story is true? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We know you have opinions on this one. And if you enjoyed diving into this mind-bending mystery with us, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, because we have plenty more mysteries and conspiracies to unravel together. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the unknown. From the secrets of Hollywood to the most intriguing unsolved mysteries, we'll keep bringing you content that makes you question everything you think you know. So stay tuned, because the world is full of mysteries just waiting to be uncovered. Could the king of rock and roll still be out there watching over his legacy from the shadows? We may never know for sure, but we'll keep searching for the truth. In 1974, during a Las Vegas show, Elvis Presley did something so unexpected that it left his fans and even his own band in total disbelief. This wasn't just another one of his legendary performances, it was a night unlike any other. Tensions were running high, and as the spotlight shone on the king, what happened next would stun everyone in the room. This one moment gave audiences a glimpse of a side of Elvis rarely seen, a side that few could have ever imagined. Was it frustration, pressure, or something much deeper? You won't believe what unfolded on that stage, and by the end of this story, you'll never look at Elvis the same way again. Stay tuned, because this is the moment that changed everything. Number 6. Setting the scene. In 1974, Elvis Presley was still reigning as the king of rock and roll, but beneath the surface, things were beginning to change. His Las Vegas residency, which had begun in 1969, was both a triumph and a burden. Night after night, he packed the showroom at the Las Vegas Hilton, delivering performances that solidified his status as a musical icon. But by the mid-70s, the pressures of constantly being in the spotlight were starting to take their toll. Behind the glitz and glamour, Elvis was grappling with health problems. His physical condition was deteriorating, and the effects of prescription medications were becoming harder to hide. While his fans saw the same magnetic performer on stage, those closest to him noticed a man weighed down by exhaustion, battling internal struggles that few outside his inner circle understood. Elvis had always been known for his flawless stage presence. Even during his hardest times, he could command the stage with a level of professionalism that kept his fans coming back for more. But something about this particular night in 1974 felt different. From the moment the show began, there was an undercurrent of tension. Elvis seemed distracted, less engaged than usual. The polished performer who typically flashed his charming smile and seemed to glide through every note appeared to be wrestling with something deeper. The band could sense it too. Something wasn't right. Although the audience likely chalked it up to a regular performance, those familiar with Elvis's demeanor could feel the shift. It was as though the perfect facade he had maintained for so long was beginning to crack. As the performance went on, the tension only seemed to rise. The band struggled to find its rhythm, and Elvis's frustration became more visible with each passing minute. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The energy was off-kilter, creating a growing sense of unease among those on stage. Elvis, who usually took these challenges in stride, was beginning to unravel. The mounting pressures of the music, not meeting his standards, combined with his internal struggles, pushed him toward an unexpected breaking point. Then, without warning, he did something that no one saw coming, an outburst that would leave the crowd stunned and his band members speechless. But what exactly did Elvis do, and how did the audience and those closest to him react? Stay with us, because the story is about to take a turn that no one could have predicted. Number 5. The incident unfolds. As the tension built on that fateful night in 1974, Elvis's frustration was palpable. He had been pushing through the performance, but something about the sound wasn't right, and it showed in his expression. The band played on, unaware of just how close things were to boiling over. Then, in the middle of a song, it happened. Elvis, visibly irritated, reached for his guitar, his instrument of choice, a symbol of his iconic rock and roll persona, and in one swift motion, he ripped it from his body and hurled it off the stage. The guitar crashed into the wings, disappearing from sight, as gasps rippled through the audience. This wasn't just a slip or a minor mistake. It was a clear, deliberate act of anger that no one, not even his closest band members, had seen coming. For a split second, the entire room seemed to freeze in disbelief, stunned by what they had just witnessed. The audience, which had come expecting another night of classic Elvis magic, was left in shock. Some fans looked around, bewildered, unsure of how to react. Others sat frozen in their seats, eyes wide as they tried to process the moment. Could it really be happening? This was Elvis Presley, always in control, always composed. But here he was, visibly shaken and throwing his guitar in a burst of anger. His bandmates, equally shocked, exchanged glances, unsure of what to do next. They had performed with Elvis countless times, but they had never seen him like this. What was supposed to be a routine night had suddenly turned into something much more unpredictable, and the tension in the room was thick. Kathy Westmoreland, one of Elvis's backing vocalists, later recalled, "We didn't know how to react. It wasn't just about the music. Something bigger was happening, and we all felt it." Guitarist James Burton, a close member of Elvis's band, would later reflect on that moment as well. "I'd never seen him like that before," Burton said. "He was always so professional, always commanding the stage with a smile. But that night, something was different. You could feel his frustration in the air." The incident was not just shocking for the audience, but deeply unsettling for those closest to Elvis. Kathy Westmoreland echoed Burton's sentiments, noting that Elvis's outburst seemed to be the result of something far more profound than just a bad performance. "He had been pushing himself so hard for years," she said. "When he threw that guitar, it felt like he was trying to throw away all the weight he'd been carrying, all the frustration and pain." It was a rare glimpse into the emotional toll that life in the spotlight had taken on the king, and for those who knew him well, it was a moment they would never forget. Number 4. Exploring the bigger picture. To truly understand what led to Elvis Presley's dramatic outburst that night in Las Vegas, it's important to look beyond the stage. By 1974, Elvis was no longer the carefree young rock and roll sensation that had first burst onto the scene. Years of relentless touring, demanding performances, and constant public scrutiny had begun to take their toll. His health was deteriorating rapidly. He had gained weight, his energy was dwindling, and he was increasingly dependent on prescription medications to keep going. This physical decline was compounded by emotional and personal struggles that were weighing heavily on him. Despite the smiles he flashed to the audience behind the scenes, Elvis was battling exhaustion and stress. He felt the enormous pressure to maintain his title as the King of Rock and Roll, even as his body and spirit were telling him to slow down. The immense pressure of living up to the public's expectations only added to Elvis's personal turmoil. For years, he had been carrying the weight of being an icon, a legend whose every move was scrutinized and celebrated in equal measure. Behind the glamour of fame, though, Elvis felt increasingly isolated. The people closest to him, including his band and entourage, began to notice the cracks in his seemingly impenetrable armor. He was no longer the vibrant man they once knew, and it was clear that something was wrong. The constant need to perform, to be Elvis Presley in the eyes of the world, had pushed him to the brink. It wasn't just about the music or the show anymore. There was a deep internal battle being fought, one that would sometimes spill out in unexpected ways, like that night on stage. One of the few people who truly understood the depth of Elvis's struggles was his spiritual advisor, Larry Geller. Geller, who had known Elvis for years, often served as a confidant, someone Elvis could talk to when the pressures of his fame became too much to bear. Geller later shared his perspective on the incident, believing that the act of throwing his guitar symbolized something much larger. Elvis was deeply spiritual, but he also felt trapped by his public image, Geller explained. That night, I believe he reached a breaking point. The frustration he unleashed wasn't just about a bad performance. It was the result of years of internal conflict. He was a man torn between the demands of his career and his own need for peace. That guitar throw, to me, was Elvis's way of trying to let go of all the pain and frustration he had been carrying inside. For Elvis, that moment was not just an outburst. It was a cry for help, one that reflected the overwhelming pressure of being a legend in a world that never let him rest. Number 3. The turning point Elvis Presley's inner circle, his band members, bodyguards, and close friends, had witnessed his rise to fame, but by 1974, they were also seeing a different side of him, one that concerned them deeply. For years, Elvis had been the epitome of confidence and charm. someone who could light up a room with his presence. But behind the scenes, those closest to him were beginning to notice a growing darkness. His longtime bodyguard, Sonny West, often spoke about the immense pressure Elvis was under and the toll it was taking on him. He was dealing with so much, West recalled. Everyone saw the superstar, but we saw the man who was tired, who was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The expectations were sky high, and he felt like he couldn't live up to them anymore. The flashy jumpsuits, the sold-out shows, the adoring fans, it all came at a price. And for those in his inner circle, the cracks in Elvis's seemingly invincible exterior were becoming more and more apparent with each passing day. Sonny West, along with others in the Memphis Mafia, had been with Elvis through the highs and lows. But as the pressure mounted, they could see the toll it was taking on their friend. West described the subtle but telling changes in Elvis's behavior, his increasing reliance on medication to keep going, his irritability, and the moments of vulnerability that surfaced more often as the years went on. He wasn't the same Elvis we'd known, West said. There were days when he was just so exhausted, mentally and physically, that it was hard to recognize the guy who once took over the world with a single performance. That fateful night in Las Vegas, when Elvis threw his guitar in frustration, was a culmination of the years of stress, pressure, and inner conflict he had been quietly grappling with. For his inner circle, it was a moment that confirmed their deepest fears. Elvis was struggling, and it was only getting harder for him to hide it. For the fans in the audience that night, the incident revealed a more human side of Elvis, one that they had rarely, if ever, seen before. One fan who attended the concert later recalled the shock of witnessing such a raw, emotional outburst from someone who was usually so composed. We'd come to see the king, the performer who never missed a beat, but what we saw was the man behind the music, the fan shared. It was like, for the first time, we were seeing Elvis as a person, not just a superstar. You could feel his frustration, his pain, and in a strange way, it made us love him even more because it reminded us that he was human, just like the rest of us. This moment, while unsettling, brought Elvis closer to his fans in a way no polished performance ever could. It was a rare glimpse behind the curtain, showing that even the most iconic figures have their breaking points. Number 2. The aftermath. After the shocking moment when Elvis hurled his guitar off stage, there was a tense silence that hung in the air. The audience, stunned by the outburst, watched with bated breath, unsure of how the rest of the night would unfold. But in true Elvis fashion, he quickly regained his composure, almost as if nothing had happened. He continued with the performance, pushing through the set with the professionalism that had come to define him over the years. There were no apologies or explanations. Elvis simply moved on. The audience, still processing what they had just witnessed, followed his lead, returning their focus to the music. Some fans speculated that maybe it was just a fleeting moment of frustration, while others believed it revealed something deeper. But Elvis didn't linger on it. He finished the show as if it were just another night in Las Vegas. The show went on, but the atmosphere had undeniably shifted. In the days that followed, the incident became the talk of fans and those who had worked closely with him. Rumors swirled about what had really caused Elvis to snap. Was it frustration with the band, or had the pressures of his declining health and relentless schedule finally caught up with him? Despite all the speculation, Elvis never publicly acknowledged the event. He offered no interviews, no statements to explain his behavior. His silence left the moment open to interpretation, fueling even more curiosity and conversation. Those who knew him best, his band, friends, and spiritual advisor, believed it was more than just an off night. Yet, without any word from Elvis himself, the true reasons behind that guitar-throwing incident remained shrouded in mystery. To this day, it remains one of those unforgettable moments in his career that fans still wonder about, a testament to the complex man behind the legend. Number 1. The deeper meaning. The guitar-throwing incident in 1974 has since become a powerful symbol of Elvis Presley's struggles during the later stages of his career. By this time, Elvis was battling not only physical decline, but also the immense psychological and emotional pressures that came with maintaining his status as a global icon. His health was deteriorating, worsened by a growing dependence on prescription medications, and the demands of performing nearly every night left him exhausted. This moment on stage, where the polished, charismatic performer lost control, became emblematic of a deeper turmoil brewing beneath the surface. It was as though the image of the king had begun to crack, exposing the vulnerable man behind the legendary persona. In that instant, the public caught a rare glimpse of the immense burden Elvis carried, one that no amount of fame, money, or adoration could lighten. The 1974 outburst offers a rare and poignant reflection of Elvis's humanity. Despite being revered as a larger-than-life figure, this moment reminded the world that even someone as iconic as Elvis Presley had his limits. For decades, he had been the epitome of confidence and control, commanding the stage with an effortless charm that made him the king of rock and roll. But here, in this fleeting act of frustration, Elvis revealed that he too was susceptible to the pressures of life, just like anyone else. This incident was not just a break in his performance, but a break in the illusion of perfection that surrounded him. It showed that behind the dazzling lights and roaring crowds, there was a man struggling with his own battles, a man who, in that moment, reached a breaking point in front of his adoring fans. As we look back on this pivotal moment in Elvis's career, it's impossible not to wonder what deeper issues may have been at play. Was it simply frustration with the band's performance, or was this outburst a manifestation of years of personal and professional struggles? We may never know the full extent of what led to this dramatic event, but it has left an indelible mark on how we view Elvis's later years. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Do you think this moment was a sign of something more profound going on in Elvis's life? Was it an isolated incident, or a window into the deeper issues he was facing? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because this story of the king is far from finished, and your perspective is part of what keeps his legacy alive. We want to hear what you think. Do you believe this moment in 1974 was a sign of something much deeper going on in Elvis's life? Or was it just a one-time outburst of frustration? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. What do you think really pushed the king to his breaking point on stage that night? Let's keep the conversation going. Your perspective could shed new light on this unforgettable moment in Elvis's career. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was unstoppable until that fateful night in 1975 when everything changed. It was a moment no one saw coming, a shocking turn of events that left his fans in disbelief. What could bring the seemingly invincible Elvis to his knees, collapsing on stage in front of thousands of devoted fans? And more importantly, what happened in the moments that followed? The truth behind this night reveals far more than just a health scare. It's a story of resilience, mystery, and a shocking aftermath that will leave you speechless. Stay with us as we unravel the unbelievable story behind this wild moment in Elvis Presley's history. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more incredible stories about the king of rock and roll. Number 5. Elvis in 1975, performing through pain. In 1975, Elvis Presley was still a dominant force in music, captivating audiences across the country with his legendary performances. However, beneath the surface, the king of rock and roll was fighting a quiet personal battle. Years of intense touring, a grueling schedule, and deteriorating health were beginning to take a toll on Elvis's body. His once electrifying energy on stage was fading, and those closest to him could see the physical and mental strain he was under. Despite suffering from chronic health issues, ranging from high blood pressure and liver damage to the dependency on prescription drugs, Elvis refused to slow down. He was determined to keep performing for his devoted fans, no matter the cost to his own well-being. Even as his health faltered, Elvis's dedication to his fans never wavered. Night after night, he would step onto the stage, ignoring the warnings of his doctors and the concerns of his inner circle. For Elvis, performing wasn't just a career, it was his lifeblood, a way to connect with the people who had supported him from the very beginning. Fans watched in awe as he continued to put on a show, unaware of the physical pain and exhaustion that was becoming harder to hide. His loyalty to his audience was unwavering, but it came at a steep price, a price that would become tragically clear on that fateful night in Asheville, North Carolina, when Elvis's body could no longer keep up with the demands he placed on it. Number 4. Build up to the collapse. In the weeks leading up to the September 26, 1975 show, Elvis Presley was grappling with an increasingly punishing tour schedule. His performances had become more frequent, yet his body was no longer keeping pace with the demands of life on the road. The years of relentless touring and personal struggles had taken a visible toll. Elvis was often exhausted, showing signs of physical decline that worried those around him. He had moments where he looked bloated and sluggish, and his once dazzling stage presence seemed dimmed by the wear and tear of his grueling lifestyle. Yet, despite it all, Elvis was determined to press on, refusing to cancel performances or let his fans down, no matter how much his health was deteriorating behind the scenes. That night in Asheville, North Carolina, the atmosphere was electric. The fans, many of whom had followed Elvis's career since the beginning, were eager to see the king of rock and roll in action. The concert hall was filled with excitement and anticipation, with the crowd buzzing for what they believed would be another unforgettable Elvis performance. After all, even with his well-known struggles, Elvis had a reputation for putting on a show that never disappointed. As the lights dimmed and the familiar sound of his band filled the air, the audience cheered wildly, unaware that this night would unfold very differently from the Elvis performances they had come to expect. Number 3. The collapse on stage. As Elvis took the stage that night, it was clear something wasn't right. He appeared visibly weaker than usual, his movements slower, and his voice lacked the energy that had once electrified audiences. As he performed, fans could see him pausing more often, clutching the microphone stand for support, and frequently wiping sweat from his brow. His breathing was heavy and labored, each song seeming to take more out of him than the last. As the performance wore on, it became impossible to ignore that the king was struggling. His usual confident stage presence was slipping away, replaced by signs of a man who was physically and mentally exhausted. Then, suddenly, in a moment that would forever haunt those who witnessed it, Elvis staggered, his legs buckling beneath him, and collapsed onto the stage. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Members of Elvis's band and crew rushed to his side, helping him as he lay on the floor, struggling to regain his composure. The audience, stunned and confused, gasped in disbelief. This was not the invincible Elvis they had come to see. The band tried to cover for him, continuing to play softly as the stage crew gathered around him, but the tension in the air was palpable. Fans sat in stunned silence, unsure if what they were witnessing was part of the act or something far more serious. Whispers of concern spread through the crowd as they watched their idol being helped off stage. The sense of uncertainty was overwhelming. What had just happened? Would he come back? Was this a momentary stumble or something much worse? In the following moments, a sense of suspense gripped the audience. What could have caused such a sudden collapse? Many speculated about his well-documented health struggles, but no one could have predicted seeing Elvis Presley, one of the most celebrated performers in the world, fall in such a dramatic and public fashion. Fans were left in shock, anxiously waiting to see if this was the final straw in the king's career. Would this be the moment that forced him to confront his declining health and step away from the spotlight? Or was it just another chapter in the relentless drive that had kept him performing, no matter the cost? Number 2. Aftermath. What happened next? Backstage, the scene was one of controlled chaos. As Elvis was helped off the stage, his entourage and medical team quickly surrounded him, trying to assess the severity of his condition. He was pale, out of breath, and struggling to regain his composure. There was immediate concern over whether he needed to be rushed to the hospital. His longtime associates, those who had seen him push through tough performances before, were worried that this might be more than just a passing moment of exhaustion. Elvis, ever the performer, insisted that he just needed a few minutes to rest, brushing off their concerns even as they hovered around him. Questions swirled behind the scenes. Was this it? Would he recover enough to go back out? Or was the show truly over? In a shocking turn of events, Elvis refused to end the concert on that note. Against the advice of those closest to him, he gathered enough strength to return to the stage later that night. When he emerged from backstage, the crowd erupted in a mix of relief and disbelief. Their king had returned, defying the fears that his collapse had sparked. Despite his weakened state, Elvis continued the performance, though the energy was notably different. Fans could see that he wasn't the same unstoppable force they were used to, but his sheer will to finish the show won their admiration. Even with his body betraying him, Elvis pushed through, offering the audience a glimpse of the man who refused to let anything stand between him and his love for performing. Yet, this night was more than just a health scare. It was symbolic of the toll Elvis's lifestyle had taken on him over the years. The collapse was a physical manifestation of the pressures he had been under for so long. Years of grueling tours, a dependency on prescription drugs to keep up with the demands of fame, and the mental weight of living up to the expectations placed on him were all finally catching up. His body could no longer endure the relentless pace he had set for himself. While the fans may have cheered his return that night, it was clear to those closest to him that Elvis was fighting a battle far more serious than the one on stage. It was a battle for his health, his future, and, ultimately, his life. Number 1. Elvis's declining health in the following years. As the years progressed after that fateful night in 1975, Elvis's health continued to decline at an alarming rate. That collapse on stage wasn't an isolated incident. It marked the beginning of a series of troubling moments that reflected his growing vulnerability. Fans, and those closest to him, started noticing more frequent signs of his physical struggles. Reports of Elvis cutting performances short, slurring his words, or appearing disoriented on stage began to surface. He battled with a growing dependence on prescription medications, which were meant to help him cope with his constant pain and exhaustion, but only exacerbated his condition. By the time 1977 arrived, Elvis's body was breaking down, and though he continued to perform, the spark that once defined him was fading. Tragically, his decline would reach its heartbreaking end on August 16, 1977, when the world lost the king of rock and roll. Despite his health struggles, Elvis Presley's legacy remained untouchable. Even as he fought his personal battles, the love and adoration from his fans never wavered. They continued to flock to his concerts, buy his records, and support him, regardless of the growing concerns about his well-being. Elvis represented something greater than just his music. He was a cultural icon, a symbol of a generation, and the embodiment of the American dream. His charisma, talent, and impact on the music industry made him larger than life, and even in his darkest moments, the world still saw him as the king. His untimely death only cemented his place in history, forever immortalizing him as a figure who transcended music and left a lasting impression on the world. The collapse in 1975 would go on to become a defining moment in the narrative of Elvis's later years. It wasn't just a sign of his declining health, it was a pivotal point in his career, sparking speculation and concern from both fans and the media. Was it the result of the immense pressure he placed on himself, or was it a warning of something far more serious? As the years passed, this moment took on even greater significance, fueling rumors and theories about Elvis's state of mind and his struggle to balance fame with his deteriorating condition. It was a reminder that even the greatest performers are still human, vulnerable to the pressures of their success. This collapse wasn't just a stumble on stage. It was a moment that foreshadowed the tragic end of an era. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this pivotal moment in Elvis Presley's life. What do you think led to his collapse that night? Was it the pressure of fame, his health struggles, or something else entirely? Share your opinions and insights in the comments below. We can't wait to see what you have to say about this unforgettable chapter in the King's legacy. And don't forget to let us know how you remember Elvis during this time in his career. What happens when a simple joke goes hilariously wrong in front of thousands of people? Imagine being in front of a packed concert hall, lights blazing, all eyes on you, and suddenly realizing that your lighthearted prank has taken a completely unexpected turn. That's exactly what happened to Priscilla Presley one unforgettable night during one of Elvis's concerts. She thought she'd add a bit of fun by joining him on stage, but Elvis had other plans, turning what was supposed to be a playful moment into a memory that would forever be etched in the minds of everyone watching. Tonight, we're taking you back to that incredible moment, a moment filled with suspense, laughter, and a little bit of embarrassment. Elvis turned the tables in a way no one saw coming, and you won't believe how it all unfolded. 7. Setting the scene. Elvis Presley's concerts were nothing short of electrifying events. The atmosphere buzzed with a sense of anticipation, and the moment he stepped onto the stage, a wave of excitement rippled through the crowd. The King of Rock and Roll knew how to captivate an audience. His charisma, his voice, and his presence were all part of the magic that made his performances legendary. Among the many routines that his fans had come to love, one stood out as a crowd favorite, bringing women from the audience on stage to give them a kiss. It was a playful and romantic gesture that thrilled the audience every time, creating a sense of intimacy between Elvis and his adoring fans. This segment became one of the most iconic parts of his live shows, adding a dash of unpredictability and personal connection that left everyone cheering and swooning. It was during one of these classic moments that Priscilla Presley decided to make her move. Priscilla, feeling the need to catch Elvis's attention in a playful way, decided to join in on the fun. As Elvis had been spending more time away, either performing or immersing himself in other activities, Priscilla was often left longing for his attention. She wanted to do something that would not only surprise him, but also remind him that she was still there, waiting and watching. The idea of joining the women on stage seemed like the perfect opportunity to add her own twist to the nightly kiss routine. She thought it would be a lighthearted joke, an amusing moment that would catch Elvis off guard while showing her playful side. With her confidence boosted by the thrill of the idea, Priscilla decided that this would be her moment, a chance to take the spotlight alongside Elvis, even if just for a few fleeting minutes. Little did she know that what she had planned as a simple prank would soon turn into a far more memorable and embarrassing experience than she had anticipated. 6. Priscilla's plan. Priscilla Presley was no stranger to the challenge of trying to keep Elvis's attention, especially as the demands of fame and the lure of the stage seemed to pull him further away from home. It wasn't that Elvis had stopped caring for her, but rather that his larger-than-life career often left Priscilla feeling like she was just another part of the background. In moments like these, she felt a need to stand out, to do something that would remind Elvis she was still there, just as vibrant and full of life as when they first met. This motivation, coupled with her playful spirit, is what led her to hatch a plan to catch Elvis's eye in the middle of one of his concerts. She knew this wasn't just about getting a laugh. It was a way to reconnect with Elvis in a setting where he was truly in his element, where he was alive in a way that he often wasn't at home. To pull off her prank, Priscilla chose her outfit deliberately, something that would not only make her stand out, but also create a bit of mystery and drama. She wore a sleek black dress with a hood and a daringly low-cut back, an outfit that was perfect for both blending in at first and then making a dramatic reveal. From the back, her appearance gave the impression of someone bold, possibly even scandalous, especially under the concert lights. With her hair covering the straps of the dress, the effect was even more pronounced. At first glance, it looked as though she might be topless. This was the element of surprise that Priscilla hoped would grab Elvis's attention immediately. It was risky, of course, but that was part of the thrill. She knew Elvis loved spontaneity, and she wanted to give him, and the audience, something to remember. As the moment came, Priscilla joined the line of eager women waiting to go on stage, her heart pounding with anticipation. She could hear the cheering of the crowd, feel the adrenaline as each fan stepped up for her moment with Elvis. When it was her turn, Priscilla stepped onto the stage with confidence, expecting a quick, light-hearted kiss from Elvis and then a return to her seat amid the laughter of the audience. She imagined Elvis's reaction, maybe a laugh, a look of surprise, and a twinkle in his eye that let her know the joke had landed just right. It was supposed to be over in a matter of seconds, a playful interruption to his usual routine, a way of reminding Elvis and everyone else of the unique connection they shared. Little did Priscilla know, however, that Elvis had noticed her right away, and he was not about to let her off the hook so easily. This joke was about to become a much longer and more public moment than she ever anticipated. 5. Elvis's unexpected reaction. When Elvis noticed Priscilla among the line of eager fans, it must have taken him by surprise. There she was, dressed to stun, standing alongside the other women who were all vying for his attention. But instead of reacting the way Priscilla had imagined, smiling, perhaps chuckling at the joke, and giving her that quick kiss, Elvis made a different choice. He kept his cool, never breaking from his performance, and continued singing, almost as if she were just another fan. It was clear that he recognized her, but instead of making it easy, he decided to prolong the moment. Elvis, always a master of showmanship, saw an opportunity to flip the script and play along in his own way, leaving Priscilla standing there, awkwardly caught between her own joke and the reality of the performance. The audience, of course, had no idea of the playful tension between the couple, but Priscilla felt every second of it as Elvis continued, seemingly oblivious to her presence. Desperate to regain control of the situation, Priscilla began to quietly plead with Elvis, her nervous whispers nearly drowned out by the music and the cheering crowd. Kiss me so I can sit down," she kept saying, her voice betraying the mixture of embarrassment and amusement she was feeling. But Elvis wasn't ready to let her off the hook. Instead of giving in to her request, he kept her waiting, standing there in the spotlight, while he continued his song. It was his way of playfully turning the tables, a subtle but powerful reminder of who commanded the stage. The longer she stood there, the more uncomfortable she became, and it must have felt like an eternity before Elvis finally acknowledged her in any significant way. He knew exactly what he was doing, stretching out the moment, making her feel every ounce of the audience's gaze as they watched in bewilderment. It was no longer just a light-hearted joke. It had become a test of nerves, a moment that showcased not just Elvis's control over the performance, but the complex dynamics of their relationship as well. Chapter 4. The audience's reaction. As Priscilla stood on that stage with the spotlight beaming down on her and Elvis continuing his song, the audience couldn't help but react to what they saw. From their perspective, Priscilla's daring black dress, with its hood and an exceptionally low-cut back, created quite an illusion. With her hair falling over the straps of the dress, she appeared, at least from the back, to be bare from the waist up. The crowd let out a collective gasp, followed by a series of curious oohs and ahs that filled the concert hall. The spectacle before them was unexpected. It wasn't just a random fan who had come up on stage. It was a mysterious, seemingly topless woman, daringly confronting Elvis Presley. The whispers spread quickly through the audience. and every pair of eyes was glued to the stage, waiting to see what would happen next. The tension was palpable, and each second that passed only amplified the sense of wonder and curiosity among the fans. For Priscilla, what started as an amusing attempt to catch her husband off guard was now turning into something much different. Hearing the crowd's reactions, the gasps, the laughter, the intrigued murmurs, only deepened her sense of unease. She could feel the audience analyzing her, wondering who this woman was and why she was standing so boldly before the king of rock and roll. The very illusion that made her look topless, which had originally seemed like a clever part of her prank, now left her feeling exposed, vulnerable, and very much the center of attention. With each passing second, the initial thrill was fading, replaced by an awkwardness that only grew as the crowd continued to react. She tried to get Elvis's attention with whispered pleas, but the longer he ignored her, the more evident it became that she was not in control of this moment. Elvis was, and he intended to keep it that way. As Elvis carried on with his performance, seemingly unfazed by her presence, Priscilla's struggle became increasingly apparent. The spotlight, bright and unrelenting, made her feel as if she were under a magnifying glass, every movement scrutinized by the thousands of fans in attendance. She could feel her face flushing, her heartbeat quickening as she tried, in vain, to maintain her composure. She kept glancing at Elvis, hoping for a quick end to the spectacle, but he was thoroughly enjoying the situation. He sang with the same charisma and energy as always, his voice unwavering, while Priscilla stood there, caught between laughter and embarrassment. She shifted uncomfortably, trying to appear at ease, but her whispered requests, kiss me so I can sit down," fell on deaf ears. Elvis held her in that spotlight, masterfully using the moment to build tension, ensuring that all eyes stayed on them. It was a testament to his unmatched control over any stage he stood on. This was his world, and tonight, Priscilla was learning just how powerful his presence could be, even when the joke was supposed to be on him. 3. The grand reveal. As the song finally drew to a close, Elvis seemed ready to put an end to the tension he had masterfully orchestrated. The final notes echoed through the hall, and the audience's anticipation reached a fever pitch. It was as if everyone in that room was holding their breath, waiting to see what he would do next. Then, in true Elvis fashion, he turned toward Priscilla with that famous smile of his, the one that could charm an entire stadium. Without missing a beat, he leaned in and planted a big, dramatic kiss on her lips. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, the tension transforming into pure excitement as the king acknowledged the mysterious woman who had captivated them throughout the performance. Elvis, always one for theatrics, made sure this was no ordinary kiss. It was grand, full of flair, a gesture that not only acknowledged Priscilla, but also gave the audience the payoff they had been waiting for. But Elvis wasn't finished just yet. After that show-stopping kiss, he surprised everyone, Priscilla included, by turning back to the microphone and introducing her to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, this here is my beautiful wife Priscilla," he announced, his voice booming across the auditorium. The crowd's reaction was explosive, with cheers and whistles filling the venue. It was a twist that nobody had expected, not even Priscilla herself. In that moment, the prank had come full circle, but not at all in the way Priscilla had imagined. Instead of remaining anonymous, playing her joke and slipping quietly back to her seat, she found herself fully revealed under the bright stage lights. Elvis, with his knack for creating unforgettable moments, had made sure she was not just a part of the show, but one of its highlights. Priscilla's reaction was a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and perhaps a touch of reluctant amusement. She could feel her face turning red as the crowd cheered, the sheer volume of it washing over her. The spotlight that had felt so harsh moments ago now seemed even more intense as she stood there, exposed not just to the eyes of thousands, but now also introduced as Elvis's wife. She managed to muster a smile, giving a small wave to the audience, but all she really wanted was to make her way back to her seat as quickly as possible. She turned, her movements hurried, almost awkward, as she made her way down the steps, feeling the eyes of the entire venue following her every step. The relief she felt when she finally reached her seat was palpable. She could finally sink back into the shadows, away from the intense focus of the spotlight. It had been a memorable night, one filled with more embarrassment than she had bargained for, but also a moment that perfectly encapsulated the unpredictable nature of life with Elvis, the king of rock and roll, a man who could turn any moment into an unforgettable performance. 2. Priscilla's Reflections. In her book, Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley offers an intimate glimpse into her life with Elvis, including that unforgettable night on stage. She describes the overwhelming mix of emotions she felt: excitement, nervousness, and ultimately embarrassment as her prank spiraled out of her control. She recounts the way her carefully planned joke quickly lost its intended humor as Elvis refused to play along, instead choosing to leave her stranded in the spotlight, exposed to the watchful eyes of thousands of spectators. Priscilla writes about how, in that moment, the audience's laughter and cheers began to feel like they were directed at her predicament rather than her intended playfulness. The feeling of vulnerability was undeniable, and she admits that what was supposed to be a fun, light-hearted attempt to share a moment with Elvis ended up leaving her flushed and eager to escape the spotlight. The audience's roaring reactions, the sudden shift of focus, and the prolonged attention were more than she had bargained for. This onstage moment was just one of the many ways Priscilla had tried to capture Elvis's often elusive attention. Life with Elvis wasn't easy. His constant travel, demanding career, and the endless adoration of fans often left Priscilla feeling sidelined, an afterthought in a world that revolved around the king of rock and roll. In her book, she shares how these kinds of stunts were her way of reminding Elvis of her presence, of standing out amidst the chaos of his public life. However, she admits that her attempt to insert herself into his world on stage did not go as planned. Instead of the brief moment of intimacy she hoped for, she found herself caught in a situation that was both amusing and deeply humbling. It was a reminder that Elvis, with his charisma and control, could turn any situation into a performance, one where even Priscilla had to play by his rules. Despite the awkwardness, it was an experience that perfectly illustrated the complex, unpredictable dynamics of their relationship, marked by love, playfulness, and the constant challenge of being in Elvis's orbit. 1. Other attempts to get Elvis's attention. Priscilla Presley's efforts to keep Elvis's attention went beyond her playful pranks. She often used her appearance to stand out in a world that was constantly competing for his focus. With Elvis being surrounded by admirers, whether on tour or even in his own home, Priscilla had to find creative ways to ensure she remained at the center of his attention. One such method was through her choice of clothing. Priscilla began wearing increasingly daring outfits, experimenting with styles that were bold, revealing, and designed to make a statement. She opted for skimpy knit dresses, see-through fabrics, and other clothing that pushed the boundaries of what was expected at the time. She knew that her appearance was something that could easily capture Elvis's eye, even in the midst of the chaos of his fame. These outfits weren't just about fashion. They were part of her strategy to maintain her place in his life, a way of reminding Elvis, and everyone else, of the captivating woman by his side. There is one anecdote in particular that perfectly highlights how Priscilla's strategy worked. During a light-hearted moment, Elvis was playfully teasing his father, Vernon, for flirting with a woman. As the joking conversation unfolded, Elvis's gaze shifted to Priscilla, and with a mix of pride and warning, he pointed out her daring outfit. He remarked, "You're going to have problems of your own if your wife goes out in the street looking like that," making it clear that Priscilla's bold fashion choices had certainly caught his attention. It was exactly the reaction Priscilla had hoped for. She wanted Elvis to notice, to be reminded of her presence, to take pride in her, and perhaps even feel a twinge of jealousy. In those moments, she succeeded in not just being the woman in the background, but in taking center stage, reminding Elvis that she was someone worth watching. These efforts, though sometimes subtle and sometimes overt, were part of the ongoing dance of their relationship. Priscilla continually finding ways to be seen in a world where Elvis's attention was a highly sought-after prize. This night on stage became one of the most memorable and amusing moments in the complicated and vibrant relationship between Elvis and Priscilla. It was a perfect reflection of the playful yet unpredictable dynamics they shared. A moment where Priscilla's attempt to take charge of the spotlight ended up being turned back on her by Elvis, who always knew how to put on a show. Though it was filled with embarrassment for Priscilla at the time, it was also a shared laugh, a story that became part of the unique history they built together. It spoke volumes about their love, which was full of surprises, fun, and moments where each tried to outdo the other in affection and attention. Ultimately, it was an experience that not only brought them closer, but also gave them a shared memory to look back on, filled with both humor and a reminder of Elvis's unmatched charisma. It's moments like these that remind us that even legends like Elvis had their own relationship quirks, their own ways of teasing and loving each other in front of the world. What do you think Priscilla felt in that spotlight? What would you do if the king of rock and roll made an unexpected request in the most unusual place? Imagine being in the presence of Elvis Presley, one of the most iconic figures in history, only to be surprised by something no one could have seen coming. This isn't your typical backstage moment or concert story. It all happened behind the closed doors of Graceland, in the most private and intimate setting imaginable. Elvis's personal sanctuary, his bathroom. As we delve into this incredible moment, meet Ginger Alden, the woman who was not only engaged to the king, but also had a front row seat to his most personal and vulnerable moments. Their relationship was anything but ordinary, filled with highs, lows, and a whirlwind of emotions that ultimately led to a night she would never forget. Stay tuned as we unravel the unbelievable story behind this wild moment in Elvis Presley's history. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more incredible stories about the king of rock and roll. Number 5. Setting the scene. Elvis Presley and Ginger Alden's relationship was anything but conventional. As the world watched Elvis's life unfold under the public eye, few people knew the intimate details of his love life towards the end of his career. Ginger Alden, who was much younger than Elvis, became the woman who held his heart during his final years. Their romance was a whirlwind of intense emotions, marked by both the excitement and challenges of being involved with someone as legendary as the king of rock and roll. But their connection wasn't just about fame or status. There was a deep, personal bond that grew between them, despite the complexities of their very different lives. Ginger's entry into Elvis's world was nothing short of magical. She first encountered him when she was just a young girl, but it wasn't until her teenage years that Elvis began to take notice of her. A casual meeting at Graceland, sparked by her sister's beauty pageant title, led to a private tour of the iconic estate, where Ginger would begin to experience the allure of being close to such a powerful figure. For most, Graceland was just a mansion with stories, but for Ginger, it quickly became a place where her life would change forever. As she recalled, stepping into Elvis's world felt like living in a fantasy world, something she could hardly believe was real. Despite the 20-year age gap between them, the chemistry between Elvis and Ginger was undeniable. Their relationship blossomed quickly, with Elvis eager to share his private world with her. To Ginger, age was just a number, and the larger-than-life presence of Elvis overshadowed any doubts about their differences. What mattered most to her was the genuine connection they had, and how Elvis made her feel like she was the only one who truly knew him beyond the superstar image. Their love story was full of unexpected twists, but what happened next between them took everyone by surprise, especially Ginger. Stay tuned, because the next part of their story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Elvis Presley. Number 4. Elvis's unique proposal. As their relationship deepened, Elvis was ready to make a bold move that would forever change both their lives. Known for his flair for the dramatic, Elvis was not one to follow convention, especially when it came to matters of the heart. So, when the time came for him to propose to Ginger, it wasn't during a candlelit dinner or on a romantic getaway. Instead, Elvis chose a place that held deep personal meaning for him, a place that might surprise you. It was in the heart of Graceland, behind closed doors, where the king decided to make his shocking proposal, showing just how different and unpredictable their relationship was. Elvis had always considered one room in his sprawling mansion to be his sanctuary, his personal retreat from the outside world. This wasn't the grand living room or even his famous jungle room. It was his bathroom. Yes, you heard that right. It was in this seemingly ordinary space that Elvis chose to pop the question. For most, a bathroom would be an unusual, if not awkward, location for such a monumental moment. But for Elvis, this space symbolized comfort, privacy, and trust. As Ginger sat in stunned silence, Elvis made his intentions clear. What Elvis asked of Ginger that night was so unexpected, so unusual, that it left her completely speechless. What could the king of rock and roll possibly request in such a private and vulnerable moment? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking details of that night, where Elvis didn't just offer a proposal, he made a request that would forever be etched in Ginger's memory, and you won't believe what it was. Number 3. The bathroom surprise. It was a night unlike any other, and Ginger Alden had no idea what was in store for her when Elvis called her into his private sanctuary, his bathroom. This wasn't just any room, it was the place where Elvis sought refuge from the world, a place where he could be himself, free from the constant pressure of being a global icon. As Ginger walked in, she could sense that something important was about to happen. There, in the quiet, intimate setting of the bathroom, Elvis sat her down. This was far from the typical romantic setting most women envision for such a significant moment, but for Elvis, it made perfect sense. He was about to make a request that would change both their lives, and he chose the one place where he felt most comfortable and in control. As Ginger sat, perhaps slightly bewildered by the choice of location, Elvis reached into his pocket and pulled out a green velvet box. Inside was a large, dazzling diamond ring. The sight of it took Ginger's breath away, making the moment both incredibly romantic and undeniably surreal. Elvis didn't need grand gestures or public displays of affection to make this proposal special. Instead, his beautiful words spoke volumes as he poured out his love for her and asked her to marry him. It was a quiet, heartfelt plea that carried the weight of all his emotions. Ginger later recalled how her hands trembled as Elvis placed the ring on her finger, the diamond sparkling in the dim bathroom light, making the whole scene feel like a dream she could barely believe was happening. But the real twist was not just in the romantic gesture itself, but in the odd and deeply personal significance of the setting. Why did Elvis choose his bathroom, of all places, for this life-changing event? For most, a bathroom would be the last place to propose, but for Elvis, it was the one place he felt he could escape the public persona and be his true self. It was a sacred space for him, and by inviting Ginger into that space, he was showing her a side of him that few ever saw. This wasn't just a proposal, it was a deeply symbolic moment, one that highlighted the complexity of Elvis's life and the intimate connection he felt with Ginger. But what was behind Elvis's choice of this unusual setting, and did it hold even more meaning than Ginger realized at the time? Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the significance of this shocking proposal. As Ginger sat in stunned silence, Elvis made his intentions clear. What Elvis asked of Ginger that night was so unexpected, so unusual, that it left her completely speechless. What could the king of rock and roll possibly request in such a private and vulnerable moment? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking details of that night, where Elvis didn't just offer a proposal, he made a request that would forever be etched in Ginger's memory, and you won't believe what it was. Number 2. Building the tension. To truly understand why Elvis chose his bathroom for such a significant moment, we need to delve deeper into what this room represented for him. For most, a bathroom might be an afterthought, a simple, functional space. But for Elvis, it was far more than that. This room was his personal haven, a place where he could escape from the relentless pressure of fame, where he could be completely alone with his thoughts. In this private sanctuary, he found solace and peace away from the chaos of the outside world. It wasn't just a physical space, it was his retreat, where the king of rock and roll could let his guard down and simply be Elvis Presley, a man like any other. The significance of this room was not lost on Ginger. As Elvis led her into this intimate space, she could feel the weight of the moment. It was in this sanctuary, surrounded by the familiar warmth of his most private quarters, that Elvis decided to make his grand gesture. Her heart raced as he spoke softly, his words filled with emotion, and in that moment, time seemed to stand still. As Elvis reached into a green velvet box and presented her with a dazzling diamond ring, Ginger's hands trembled with shock and excitement. She could barely comprehend what was happening. Here she was, in the heart of Elvis's world, being asked to become part of it forever. But that's not all that happened in this iconic room. As Elvis slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing their bond, there was something else, something even more unexpected that would take this moment from extraordinary to unforgettable. What could possibly come next after such a grand proposal? What did Elvis ask of Ginger that left her speechless, standing in the very place where the king found both comfort and heartbreak? The answer to that question is coming, and it's a moment you won't want to miss. Number 1. The tragic ending. The bathroom that once held so much joy for Ginger Alden, the very place where Elvis asked her to be his wife, would tragically transform into a site of unbearable heartache. What had once been a sanctuary of love and intimacy would later become a place of loss and grief. Just months after the memorable proposal, it was in this same room where Ginger would find Elvis, unresponsive, forever changing the way she would remember their time together. What began as a room filled with laughter, shared secrets, and the promise of a future together ended as the setting for the most heartbreaking moment of her life. In her autobiography, Ginger recounts the harrowing details of that fateful day. She had woken up, noticed Elvis wasn't beside her, and went to find him. As she approached the bathroom, her heart sank when she saw the door slightly ajar. Knocking gently and calling his name, she received no answer. What she saw when she opened the door would haunt her forever. Elvis, motionless on the floor. In that instant, the bathroom that had once symbolized love and happiness became the darkest place in her memory. As Ginger later wrote, "One moment, it was a place of love and happiness. The next, it became the darkest moment of my life." This devastating shift from joy to tragedy makes this room forever etched in both her heart and the legacy of Elvis Presley. As we uncover more of this incredible story, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Elvis choosing such a personal and unexpected place for this life-changing moment? Do you think the king had a deeper reason for picking his private sanctuary for such an important proposal? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. We'd love to hear your take on this unforgettable chapter in Elvis Presley's life. And don't forget to join the conversation with fellow fans. Elvis Presley is alive? Could it be possible that the king of rock and roll didn't actually die in 1977? You won't believe these 20 shocking facts that suggest otherwise. For decades, fans have been captivated by the official story that on August 16, 1977, the world lost one of its most beloved entertainers.